I don't know anymore, man. I really don't. In some ways, this was less painful than where we left off with Batwoman, and in some ways it was more frustrating than ever, because even when it seems like the writers might have put in a tiny bit of actual effort, they still can't get out of their own way. Here's the short version. This could potentially have been Batwoman's least bad episode, but even if that were the case, their least bad episode is still pretty awful. It's as if the writers took this 3-week hiatus to do some self-reflection and realized that, oh damn, our ratings are going down faster than a Thai hooker, so before the CW decides to take a second look at that premature Season 2 order, maybe we should, try. So they tried, in their own special way, but that only made the root of the problem all the more obvious. Because even when the writers are attempting to steer the bus away from the cancellation office for a change, there's still the issue of them not having a clue how to fucking drive. My point being that at this stage of the game, even if they try to make a good show, it won't matter, because the brain trust in charge of the Berlantiverse hired these clowns based on their politics instead of writing talent, and now that they need writing talent to claw their way out of the grave they've dug this show into, there's none to be found. But you guys didn't come for the short version, did you? No, you came to watch me suffer through this shit so you don't have to. And since I have to make rent this month, here I am. So let's get this over with and deep dive into Batwoman episode 12, Take Your Choice. Take your choice? Why not make your choice? That's just stupid. We start off in the prison where Jacob and Sophie are meeting with that doctor that Mary talked to in episode 10. When she did that, she wanted him to testify about how it is indeed possible for Mouse to disguise himself as Jacob through the use of his ass mask technology. He thought the whole thing was ludicrous and refused to help her, but since then he's had a change of heart off screen and is now on board with this idea. He still thinks the whole thing is nuts, but he is willing to be convinced, provided that he can meet Mouse and run some tests on him, and if the tests pan out, then he'll sign some paperwork that will help them in the trial. Okay, that seems reasonable enough. So he leaves, and once they're alone, Sophie confesses to Jacob that the Crows really need him back, that she's doubting herself, doubting her ability to lead the Crows in his absence, because, she's done an absolutely terrible job of that so far. And I'm genuinely stunned that they're actually admitting this. I mean, they don't go into specifics and mention all the laws that Sophie has broken or all the incompetent calls she's made, but they do acknowledge that she's made an utter mess of things, and I'll take that over the writers refusing to admit that she's done anything wrong at all, which is what they'd normally do. Jacob tells Sophie that if she wants to prove that she's a force to be reckoned with, she has to eliminate the threat, and that means take Alice out. Considering that Jacob is about to go on trial for his wife's murder, ordering one of his employees to kill someone out in the open where anyone could hear him might not be the smartest thing he could be doing, but that's just me. Cut to a montage of the Crows conducting raids on warehouses and old abandoned buildings, scaring the crap out of homeless people in their search for Alice because Sophie wants Alice found at any cost and has ordered the Crows to shoot to kill. Okay. There's 2 problems with this. Number 1, they've already established that Mouse will always side with Alice and won't take her down with him, so he's going to be no help in the trial. So in the event that the mountains of evidence that prove Jacob's innocence don't convince the jury, and there's a good chance of that since said mountains of evidence have gone completely unmentioned by the writers, and these clowns need someone to blame Catherine's murder on, Alice is really their only shot. Yeah, she didn't want to play ball before, but so what? Take another crack at it. Talk to her again. Offer her something for her cooperation, like a reduced sentence or a cell with a view or something. You're not really spoiled for options here, so what have you got to lose? Number 2, and this is the big one, this is illegal! The Crows are not police. They're not the CIA, they're not the NSA, they're not Homeland Security, they're a private security firm, or at best some kind of deputized militia. They don't have any legal authority to issue a fucking shoot-to-kill order. At least I'm assuming they don't, because the damn show has never once explained how the legal system works in this city or how the crows fit into it. So they can't shoot to kill. You know why? Because even wanted criminals have rights. If you can capture her without killing her, that's what you have to do, because that's how the law works. I know that, and I don't know the first goddamn thing about the law, and yet I still seem to know more about the law than the hacks running a TV show about a crime fighter who's supposed to care about this stuff. It would be one thing if some character pointed out that this is dangerous, reckless, illegal, and that Sophie is flying off the handle here, but that doesn't happen. Are you sure you can do that? Yes, I can. Okay, just checking. That's all it amounts to. Everyone just takes it at face value that the crows somehow have the legal right to kill whoever the hell they want, regardless of what the law says. I'm just asking for a little clarification here. Is that really too much to ask? What? It is? Well, shit. Cut to Luke, Mary, and Beth in a car trying to get Beth the hell out of Dodge because the city isn't safe for her. In the previous episode, Beth stated that no one she'd met that day even recognized her despite her looking exactly like the most famous criminal in the city, but now, suddenly there's a huge danger of this happening because the plot says so. They get stopped at a Crow's checkpoint, and Mary, being the stepdaughter of the Crow's leader, tries to bullshit them out of this while Beth hides under some blankets, but she has another migraine and gets noticed, so the Crows order them to get out of the car. But Batwoman arrives in the nick of time, takes out all the Crows, and tells them to burn rubber. Okay, two more things. Number one, the Crows, who are for all intents and purposes law enforcement personnel of some kind, had eyes on Alice. Then Batwoman attacked them and helped Alice escape. Now, one would think this would make Batwoman a criminal in the eyes of the law because, as far as they know, she just helped a fugitive escape through the use of violence. But do the Crows investigate this? Do they put a warrant out for Batwoman's arrest? No. In fact, the only time it comes up at all is in a conversation between Batwoman and Sophie, in which Sophie tries to walk away instead of apprehending Batwoman for attacking her subordinates, people who are Sophie's responsibility, mind you, and helping a wanted murderer escape. Granted, it's not like Batwoman hasn't done that before, so maybe Sophie is just numb to it at this point, but nevertheless, here's Batwoman aiding and abetting someone who appears to be the very woman Sophie just put a shoot-to-kill order on, and no one even seems to give a shit! Number two, Mary just made a big thing of telling the Crows exactly who she is. Hey, you should just let us pass because my dad is your boss, blah blah blah. She identified herself as Jacob's daughter. Then the Crows found Alice in her back seat, and she ran from them after Batwoman attacked them all. Presumably, this would make Mary a fugitive. At the very least, she'd be wanted for questioning or something. But just like Batwoman's aiding and abetting, it never even comes up again. Maybe that's just because there was a lot happening really fast, but that's not some shit you can just ignore. So I'll be very interested, very, very interested to see if the writers follow up on this next week. They're not going to do that, are they? Cut to some alley in another part of the city where Alice stabs a crow in the neck and kills him. Even though Alice escaped custody in the last episode, Kate did technically capture her and Mouse finally, so I can't use that list of crimes they've committed since Kate let them walk away anymore. That being said, I'm sure this is Kate's fault somehow. Then Alice has another migraine, not unlike the one I get every time I have to watch this show. Cut to Bruce's office where Beth is having one too. Mary's looking at Beth's blood under a microscope and determines that Alice's cells are literally disintegrating on a molecular level and she has 7 hours to live. That's a pretty big leap considering that Mary is only a second-year med student and she didn't do any actual tests of any kind. She just looks at the blood under a microscope for a minute and gives Beth 7 hours. And she means 7 hours. She's got this worked out down to the minute, as we'll find out later. It's absolutely preposterous, but what did we expect them to do? Use all the advanced technology of Wayne Enterprises that they have easy access to examine Beth and make the prognosis then? I mean, come on. That would have been downright logical. So Beth talks about the multiverse theory again and decides that two Beths can't exist in the same world, and them coexisting in this world means that they're both on borrowed time. Even though there have been situations like this on the other Arrowverse shows where two versions of the same person from different worlds came together on one world and nothing like this happened. One of my Twitter followers pointed out that there are multiple doppelgängers left over from the multiverse on Supergirl, and nothing like this is happening there. But asking the Berlantiverse writers to respect continuity at this point is like asking the filmmakers of a woke feminist movie to not blame men when they don't bother to see the movie that wasn't made for them. Also, during this scene, Beth and Luke have a little moment where they both try to explain the multiverse theory to Kate at the same time, and then they share a look that's like, hey, you're alright. It is far and away the most heterosexual thing that's happened on this show in 12 episodes. I'll give you one guess what happens next. Anyway, Beth and Alice have 7 hours to live. Either one of them dies or they both do. Mary says they need to get Beth to a hospital because even though she's a woman and therefore awesome at nearly everything by default, she's nevertheless not really qualified to handle an ailment like this. But that's not really an option because the crows will kill Beth on sight. I mean, I guess they could disguise Beth or something. That is a viable option, as we'll find out later, but God forbid they do something intelligent like that. Oh, you think that was sarcasm? You think so? Well, it wasn't. Get a load of this. Kate says they need to get Beth to a hospital outside the city and plans to go to Sophie for help. Oh yeah, your irrational ex-girlfriend who just put an illegal shoot-to-kill order on the woman Beth looks identical to. I'm sure she'll listen to reason. But then Luke inadvertently points out, in the midst of explaining why that idea is really dumb, that Kate could call Supergirl or the Flash for help. I mean, hell, Kate just did an exclusive interview with Kara. She probably has Kara's number on her phone. In a matter of seconds, Kara or Barry could speed Beth to some private Wayne Enterprises care facility in Switzerland or something. There's one problem solved right there. And again, I'm amazed that they're actually referencing this. Because the heroes are all in the same universe, so they have to acknowledge these things now. But the problem is, even though the writers don't want Kate to get help from Kara or Barry, they have no excuse whatsoever for why Kate can't do this when it makes all the sense in the world to do. If there was at least some kind of explanation, like Supergirl and the Flash are saving some islanders from an erupting volcano in the South Pacific and they don't have their phones on them, that would be alright. But they don't even bother with an explanation. Luke puts forth the idea to call Supergirl or the Flash for help. It's the most intelligent thing anyone says in this episode by a country mile, and Kate's just like, pfft. And she just walks away. So instead of avoiding a massive plot hole by offering up this possibility and then explaining why it's not an option, they just have Kate not give a shit about getting help from her superpowered friends and putting Beth's life in even more danger by doing so because Kate is just stubborn, belligerent, and unbelievably stupid to the point of lunacy. This character, god damn it! Cut to the hospital where Alice has disguised herself in the uniform of that crow she just murdered. She walks right up to the crow guarding Mouse's room, and he lets her in. Just like that. He doesn't ask to see the ID of this crow he's never met before. He doesn't question why she's here when she wasn't on the schedule. He doesn't call HQ to confirm her orders to transfer the inmate. He doesn't even recognize her as the most famous criminal in the city who his boss just put a kill order on a few hours ago. Apparently, he doesn't have the slightest idea who she is because she's wearing a hat. So why the hell can't they just put a hat on Beth and take her to a hospital if that's all it takes? Jesus Christ! Mouse is confused. He tells her about the other Alice, who looked just like his Alice, except it wasn't Alice. Alice figures that this might have something to do with why she's bleeding from the ear, so she decides to look into this and come back for Mouse later. Cut to Sophie searching desperately for someone to kill when she's confronted by Batwoman. And does she try to apprehend Batwoman for attacking several crows earlier and helping Alice escape? Don't be silly. That never even occurs to her. In fact, she cares so little about that she tries to walk away from this conversation. Even though Batwoman was just seen aiding and abetting a wanted criminal as far as she knows, not one single is given. She does half-heartedly ask for an explanation, but when Batwoman doesn't give her one, she just figures the hell with it and drops the issue altogether. Yeah, Sophie was right to doubt her abilities in that opening scene, because she absolutely sucks at this. I'd tell her not to quit her day job, but for God's sake, at this point, that's exactly what she should do. Batwoman even points out that Sophie has been roughing up innocent people and conducting unlawful searches. Well, if they're unlawful, then why doesn't the law, meaning the fucking police, step in and stop them? None of this makes any sense! Batwoman urges Sophie to call off the kill order and let her find Alice her way. And why on earth she thought Sophie would go for this is a fucking mystery, because as far as Sophie knows, Batwoman just fought off a bunch of law enforcement personnel to help Alice escape capture. So Sophie refuses, and Batwoman fucks off. Cut back to the prison where Alice's old boyfriend, whose name I still don't know, sneaks up on Jacob and shanks him in the gut. This is the second time that Jacob has been stabbed in the gut. Last time it was so meaningless he didn't even need to see a doctor. At least this time there's blood, but oddly enough that doesn't stop him from having a whole fight scene with this guy after the stabbing and then having a conversation with him while he's bleeding out all over the floor as if he's not in any pain or moments away from death at all. The boyfriend then points out the hypocrisy of Jacob and the Crows, how Alice went dangerously insane to cope with an impossible situation, but the Crows do lots of horrible things too, including bribing, beating people, tampering with evidence, and after the last couple episodes, I 100% believe that the Crows have done all those things and worse. We've already seen them beating people, so the rest is not much of a stretch. But we don't get Jacob's reaction to this because some new dude takes out the boyfriend from behind, and since Jacob might be on his way out of prison soon, he wants Jacob to return the favor. He then walks out of the room without calling for help and leaves Jacob to bleed to death on the floor. But don't worry, I'm sure he'll be fine by next week because the plot says so. Back in Bruce's office, Luke and Beth are trying to science a solution to the two Beths dilemma. Luke thinks they could put her in cryogenic suspension, which sounds like it might work, and according to Batman lore, it probably would work, except that Beth doesn't want to do it, I guess because a man suggested it. She then explains that the only real option is the one that Kate refuses to consider. Getting help from Supergirl and the Flash? No, not that one. She means that one of the Beths has to die. And then, as if on cue, Alice just waltzes in. Because even though there's a citywide manhunt to find the woman that Beth looks exactly like, even though the Crows have been ordered to shoot to kill the moment they see her, even though it's getting more dangerous for Beth every moment that she sits there, not one person on Team Batgirl thought to close the office door! Beth was just sitting there this whole time, with the door fucking wide open. Literally anyone could have walked by the open door, seen Beth, and mistook her for Alice. And may I remind you, Luke is the head of Wayne's security. Making things secure is literally his job. Holy shit, man. For a show that claims to be so incredibly progressive, the POCs are not getting the best treatment this week. Oh my god. So after the commercials, Kate walks in too. Alice finds out how Beth turned out so much better than she did because on her world, Kate saved her from the car before it went off the bridge. As you can imagine, Alice has a lot of resentment for Beth over this. And then she finds out that for one Beth to live, the other has to die, so she throws a knife at Beth. But because Kate is the bestest ever and has reflexes that cats can only dream of, she catches the knife out of the air when it's like 3 inches from Beth's face. Alright, look. I'm a fair person. I give credit where it's due. Ruby Rose sleepwalked through this scene like she does with 99.9% of her other scenes, and the hokey dialogue doesn't help anyone. But Rachel Scarston was good here. The dawning comprehension as she realized how the other Beth turned out and why was well played. Scenes like this show that Scarston can probably be a good dramatic actor when she wants to be, and I suspect that her being so cartoonishly over the top may be something that she's been directed to do. Then Kate lets Alice escape again. Yeah, she did it again. Later on, Alice walks into Mary's illegal underground abortion clinic, meaning that Kate just let her walk out of the Wayne Enterprises building. Even though Alice just most likely murdered the guy at the front desk and stuffed his body in a broom closet, even though she framed their father for their stepmother's murder, Even though, if there's a solution to the problem of the two Beths dying, it would be a lot easier to find if they had both Beths on hand. Even though Alice was unarmed because she just got rid of her knife. Even though Alice was having the same migraine as Beth, was basically helpless and could have been stopped easily. Even though there's a kill order on Alice right now, and Kate has always wanted to keep Alice alive. Even though letting Alice leave is the stupidest goddamn thing Kate could have possibly done in this situation, Kate just lets her leave again! God damn this show! Damn it, straight to hell! I thought the show was past this. But one thing has become abundantly clear about Batwoman by now. When the writers put a character up on a pedestal, to the point that they adamantly refuse to acknowledge that she ever makes mistakes, that means that this character is completely incapable of learning from her mistakes. So this business of Kate letting Alice go without trying to apprehend her, I expect it's going to keep happening. Now, she might try to bring Alice in once in a while like she did in episode 10, but ultimately, she's always going to revert to form. Kate is going to keep letting Alice go. And no matter how many people Alice kills or maims or kidnaps or frames for murder, because the writers want their precious LGBT female hero to be infallible, they will never let it be viewed as Kate's fault for not capturing Alice when she had the chance. And because of that, Kate will never actually learn anything from this. So her character can't grow or evolve. It's just going to be trapped in this maddening static state of unbridled arrogance and zero accountability. Why would you deny Kate the chance to grow as a human being? Why would you treat any character like that? I think Kate is the worst thing to happen to TV since Legends of Tomorrow, and even I think that's not fair. So Alice came to see Mary because when Mary and Catherine were dying from that poison that Mouse slipped into their drinks, Alice gave Mary the antidote. And apparently this antidote is some kind of magical umbrella cure miracle drug that can also stop a human being's cells from disintegrating on a molecular level. And Alice just knows this because. So Alice knocks Mary unconscious and draws some blood, because one syringe of plasma is all it's going to take to save someone whose molecules are disintegrating because the universe literally will not allow her to exist. I don't make the rules, people, I just report this stuff. Cut back to the hospital where the doctor from that first scene has come to see Mouse, but then he pulls off his ass mask and reveals that he's been Mouse's dad the whole time. Oh, for God's sake. So that's why the doctor changed his mind about helping with Jacob's case. He did it to get to Mouse. And I guess Mouse's voice-changing superpower runs in the family or something. Not that they bothered to explain that, mind you, I'm just assuming. So Mouse is terrified of this guy, but rather than scream for the guard posted right outside his door, Mouse just stays quiet because he's an idiot. The dad wants to know where Alice is. He wants to kill her so he can finally forgive Mouse for being weak enough to let Alice manipulate him. But Mouse refuses because Alice accepted him as he is, while the dad always taught him to think he's a monster, and he will never, ever betray Alice. So the dad injects him with something and knocks him out. Disregarding the incredible stupidity of this scene, I mean, why the hell doesn't Mouse just yell for the guard? The guy is literally 10 feet away, for f***'s sake! This scene did do one thing right. It actually generated a little bit of sympathy for Mouse. I almost felt bad for Mouse here, because even though Mouse is a criminal, a psychopath, a murderer, he's also a victim who was very obviously abused and deprived of any kind of normal life by his cartoon villain of a father, which caused him to attach himself to Alice as the one person who ever showed him any real affection. It doesn't mean I hate that character any less, but at least the dad showed us a new layer to Mouse here, which is something Mouse desperately needed. Cut back to the illegal underground abortion clinic where Alice has Mary's blood and is about to inject herself with it, but then Mary wakes up, the two of them have a fight, and Mary wins. Keep in mind, the show has always portrayed Alice as an incredibly deadly person. Even despite her apparent lack of formal fight training, we've seen Alice destroy people in fights with ease. In episode 11, she killed 2 men effortlessly in a matter of seconds while handcuffed. In episode 10, she fought Batwoman and defeated her. And now she's losing a fight to Mary. Mary! There is a massive inconsistency in Alice's fighting ability here, and the only explanation I can come up with is that while Alice is a woman and therefore indestructible, Mary is a woman of color and therefore indestructible +1. Really? We're doing this now? So Mary handcuffs Alice to a bed and leaves with the blood, not caring or not noticing that she left a fucking telephone within reach of Alice. There's a phone just sitting there on the floor right next to her. I don't know what's going on in this episode, but it's as if the POCs lost a bet and now they all have to be portrayed as being so goddamn stupid you have to wonder if they're even multi-celled. So Alice grabs the phone, calls the crows, and tells them where Beth is. Cut to Bruce's office where Kate is comforting Beth, who seems surprisingly okay for a person whose cells are disintegrating on a molecular level, and for the record, Kate has still not closed the door to the office. Then the crows show up, and because Kate still doesn't feel like calling Supergirl or the Flash to easily get them out of trouble, Kate and Luke hide Beth in the Batcave. Back at the clinic, Alice is deteriorating a lot faster than Beth is for some reason, and she starts hallucinating Catherine, who claims that she showed remorse for her mistakes. Bullshit! There was no remorse for the arson or the attempted murder. But Alice is evil through and through, and that's why Kate will never choose her. But even after all the evil shit that Alice has done, she still believes that ultimately Kate is going to choose to save her over Beth. This is another scene that Rachel Scarston manages to make work. She's still overacting, but she's a lot more vulnerable than we usually see Alice. Just for a second, Alice is a little kid again, and she's clinging to this naive belief that Kate will choose her because they're sisters, and it's just that simple. And I actually did kind of feel bad for Alice in this moment. Despite all the horrible crimes she's committed, it's a scene that probably shouldn't work, and almost doesn't, but she's able to sell it. Alice really is the MVP of this show, and not just because she's the only character who's fun to watch. It's also because of stuff like this. Back in the Batcave, Beth is emotionally validating Kate, because that's what this episode really needed. Kate thinks she became Batwoman out of guilt, but Beth says that she became Batwoman out of courage. You're both way off. Based on the show I've been watching for the last 12 episodes, I'd say the truth is that Kate became Batwoman out of spite. Try to prove me wrong. Go ahead. I'll wait. Luke says they're going to have to wait out the crows who are currently swarming the building, but Kate says they can't wait that long since Beth doesn't have much time. And that's weird because she looks surprisingly good considering she only has minutes left before her body disintegrates into nothingness. Then Kate gets a call from Mary and goes to meet her, and apparently she gets out of the Batcave through some secret exit that we've never seen before, which naturally begs the question, why the hell can't they get Beth out of Wayne Enterprises that way? And we never get an answer. Mary gives her the syringe of blood, but it's only a cure for one Beth, and Kate is still being stubborn and wants to save them both, despite them having no way of doing that, and the Beths only having exactly 20 minutes left to live, according to Mary, even though all Mary did was look at Beth's blood under a microscope, and that she could have somehow narrowed down their time of death to the minute when, by her own admission, she's hardly an expert on this stuff is just plain silly. Kate still can't decide what to do, but Mary has zero sympathy for Alice, and she's like, save Beth, dummy. Beth's awesome, and Alice is a total bitch. It's not that simple for Kate, because that would be like she's failing her sister all over again. What follows is arguably the best moment of the show so far, but also unintentionally hilarious. We cut back and forth between two scenes where Kate goes to see Alice and Beth. To suggest that she somehow did all this in under 20 minutes is laughable, but whatever. She talks to both of them, and they kind of tease you with which one she's going to give the blood to. It looks like she's giving it to Alice. Alice thinks she is. and actually looks really emotional and touched by this act of sisterly kindness. But then they pull the rug out and reveal that Kate gave the blood to Beth, and she came to Alice not to save her, but to say goodbye, to admit that she couldn't save Alice, but that she wants Alice to find some peace. And Alice is crushed by this, but she also kind of accepts it. Because when Catherine was saying that she was evil and Kate wouldn't choose her, that was Alice's subconscious guilt talking to her, and on some level deep down, Alice believed that she didn't deserve to be saved. And now this is all finally hitting her, and she has to confront it for the first time. That's what I got from this anyway. And then they just sit there and wait for Alice to die. This is another scene that works thanks to Rachel Skarsten's performance. Ruby Rose doesn't do her any favors. She looks like she's trying to emote, and she gets a little watery-eyed, but the best she can really do is scrunch up her face like... And that's when I laughed. And I almost felt bad about that because Rachel Skarsten was good here. And if Ruby Rose was a human being rather than a robot that can't process human emotion, this probably would have been a good scene. So they were cutting back and forth here, and before she went to see Alice, Kate told Luke to take the Batcycle and get Beth out of there, because it's only a matter of time before the crows find the entrance to the Batcave. Yeah, I doubt that very much, Kate. Sophie is running this op, and she couldn't find a grain of sand on a beach at this point. So Luke and Beth blast through the crows' checkpoint on the Batcycle. They're wearing helmets to hide their identities, but the Batcycle is recognizable. So, as far as the crows know, that's twice that Batwoman has attacked them in the last 7 hours. If a warrant for Batwoman's arrest has not been issued by the next episode, I will complain on the internet. Cut to Mouse tied up in some abandoned building, so his dad got him out of the hospital off-screen somehow, even though there would have been tons of witnesses and there's no way he could have gotten past them all. Of course, how the hell he did this is never explained. Then the dad leaves and says he'll be back for Mouse very soon, he just has to go take care of something. Cut to Luke and Beth arriving at some random parking lot, and Sophie is there waiting for them, ready to take Beth out with a sniper rifle. How in the blue hell did Sophie know they would be there, you ask? How did she know ahead of time to get into sniper position in that exact spot and wait for them to show up? I have no idea. She just did because, say it with me everyone, it's in the script. And turns out Sophie's not the only one who was there waiting for them to show up because the plot demands it. Mouse's dad is there too. Yeah, Mouse's dad also practices divination apparently, and knew exactly where they were going to drive to and where they were going to park because he was in the perfect sniper position waiting for them to arrive and walk into the crosshairs of his fucking rifle scope. So when Sophie decided at the last second to not take the shot, the dad takes it instead and kills Beth. And it's a weird moment because Luke is really broken up over this for some reason. He's emotional and crying and everything. Her death hits him really hard. He's devastated. He's known her for 1 day. And another thing, Sophie would have seen Luke through her rifle scope. So as far as she knows, Luke Fox was aiding and abetting Alice. Now I don't remember if Sophie has ever met Luke. I don't think she has. So I guess it's possible that she doesn't know who he is. But let's see if this gets followed up on next week. Because if Sophie does know Luke and doesn't follow up on this, then I will complain on the internet again. Then we cut back to the clinic, and with Beth now dead, Alice, who was seconds away from death herself, suddenly snaps back to perfect health. Boom! Just like that. Not sure how that happens exactly, seeing as how if she was this close to dying due to her cells disintegrating on a molecular level, I don't think she's getting back to 100% anytime soon. By all medical logic, her body should have the consistency of Greek yogurt by now. But medical logic. Alice is instantly back to normal because magic, and she grabs some metal tray and knocks Kate out with it. I don't know what good that's gonna do since she's still handcuffed to the bed, and if she could have gotten out of those cuffs, she would have done it already, but that'll have to wait for next week. But you know what? You know what? Since this episode has pissed me off so much, I'm not giving them any more leeway. And seeing as how Kate let Alice escape when she could have easily captured her again, and Alice went on to commit more crimes immediately afterward again, that means the list is back, baby! New and improved! And guess what, Alice? You just made the list! That was episode 12, and even when this show tries to be good, it's still just awful. Between Batwoman attacking the crows, seemingly helping a criminal with a kill order on her head escape as far as they know, and no one even blinking at it, much less trying to arrest her for it later, the crows not even bothering to look for Mary after she escaped in the car with the woman they thought was Alice, and being so blind, deaf, and dumb that they don't recognize the real Alice when she's standing right in front of them, Kate and her idiot cronies hiding Beth in Bruce's office with the door wide open, Kate being so goddamn arrogant that she refuses to ask for help from Supergirl or the Flash when they could have easily gotten her dying sister to safety in a matter of seconds, Mary's blood being a magic deus ex machina, and Sophie and Mouse's dad being able to see the future because that's the only way they would have known where and when Luke and Beth were going to be. This episode was an absolute fucking mess. And to cap off this travesty, they actually had the setup for something potentially really interesting, but just like with every other opportunity on this show, they immediately flushed it down the toilet. Sophie has Alice in her sights, is ready to kill her, and she doesn't do it. So Mouse's dad kills Beth instead, and that is the most boring way this could have possibly turned out. Think about this for a second. If Sophie had actually pulled that trigger, that would have put Kate and Sophie at odds, injected some real tension and complexities into their relationship, because there's still unresolved feelings there, or so they say. But now Kate resents Sophie for killing Beth, even though Sophie believes that she was killing the infamous murderer Alice. It could have introduced a whole new adversarial element into their dynamic, which would have been, let's not kid ourselves, way more interesting than the chemistry-deficient will-they-won't-they garbage that wasn't working in the first place, and might have actually given these actresses a decent story to play with for a change. But instead, they just took the easy way out and had Mouse's dad kill Beth, meaning that they're just taking the most ridiculous cardboard cutout, one-dimensionally evil character on the entire show and demonizing him even more. Which is just so lame and half-assed by comparison. Any redeeming qualities this episode had were because of Rachel Scarston. There were a couple scenes here that worked, and it was entirely because of her. There were moments here when I did genuinely feel bad for Alice, and that's no small feat. But any goodwill they generated from those scenes was instantly pissed away by literally everything else that happened. Even when it seemed like the writers were trying to create some real stakes for once, they shot themselves in the foot at every turn. There's plot holes all over the place, a laundry list of things that make no sense whatsoever about this situation, and even when a golden opportunity to make the Kate-Sophie relationship one of the weakest aspects of this show a lot more interesting is handed to them gift-wrapped, they still somehow find a way to f*** it up. I said in the last video that the more interesting story would have been to kill Beth, and I stand by that. But the whole point was to kill her in such a way that would impact the characters and create a lasting change for the better. Kate blaming herself for not being able to save Beth from dying in the burning car would have done that. Sophie killing Beth would have done that. Mouse's dad killing Beth doesn't do shit. All that accomplishes is making their most transparently hateable villain even more transparent. Because God forbid the show actually do something interesting for a change. F*** you. This episode sucked, this show is garbage, and it deserves every single viewer that it's losing week to week because of crap like this. That's it for this one. I'm getting out of here. If you enjoyed this review, check out the playlists on the channel and watch the other ones. Ding that bell icon and follow me on Twitter using the link in the description so you'll always be notified about new videos. F the YouTube algorithm by liking, sharing, subscribing, and making sure you're still subscribed, because people keep getting randomly unsubscribed and the problem is getting worse, not better. And I'll be back with more very soon, hopefully with something better to talk about than this shit show. Until next time, over and out.